should we just start, given those front pages? And Kevin, you are also a regular on this train, as we are.
On that line, yeah.
On that line.
Yeah.
The bravery of the quick thinking of the train driver to suddenly realise if he diverted to the slow line, they could stop at Huntingdon. But also the staff member, who I think was just on the train looking after people, probably serving the coffee, in that moment, puts his body on the line in front of passengers and is badly injured. I mean, we don't talk enough about the bravery and public service of people who work on our trains and in our public transport. And, I mean, it is, in that moment, you've got a choice. Do you run backwards or do you run forwards? And he ran forward.
I know, and you would always hope you'd do that yourself, but you couldn't blame anybody if they didn't. And I think tales of heroism will come out, and the police say undoubtedly save lives. That's steward, and your thoughts go out to him and his family, and you want him to pull through. And as the driver says, the driver, they'll have got the information because you're in a train. Points have to be changed, signals changed for you to stop. It's not like driving a coach. You need other people, and the driver says that he's paying tribute to his co-worker who's fighting for his life. But we'll find other acts of heroism from passengers, but you can't, because I use that line all the time, but I think it'll relate to anyone who uses a train. You're trapped, and you're trapped with somebody with a huge knife, and you know they're stabbing people. I mean, it's almost unimaginable, the horror you will feel, and I just hope everybody there who is physically injured gets all the help, but also those who witnessed it, because they'll suffer traumas for some time to come.
It really does, Andrew, raise questions about what you do on a train, because as Kevin says, we all use trains.
All the time.
So everyone can imagine what that feeling would be like. And the eyewitnesses describe, obviously they're running away from the attacker, and at some point you're going to run out of train.
Yeah.
Some people manage to get into the toilets and lock those, of course. What do we do?
What do we do? Panic.
Yeah.
And that's what people probably did, and who blames them? Probably what I would have done. Who has a weapon with them? You might have a laptop or something, but you have to remember, what is it, 4 or 5 million people use the train every day. So how do you protect people like that from somebody who's gone mad?
And it was a train, but it could have been a cinema or a supermarket or a bus. I mean, our problem is we don't know anything about what the motive was, but we know the cry, the devil's not going to win. I mean, we had similar language used with the Haino knife attack some months ago. And in those moments when somebody is crazed and looking to harm, it could happen anytime, anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and assaults on passengers and members of the public on the mainline railway reached a record in the year 2023 to 24, up 17% on the previous year. Those were statistics released in January this year. So I don't know what the latest statistics are, but I mean, statistics aren't going to protect you from the fear that this could happen again.
It still feels a relatively safe way of travelling. That's not going to be any comfort to the people on this train or people fearing, but it does feel relatively safe when you're travelling. And if you get somebody like this case, and there's somebody in police custody, and so there's some legal restrictions, but if they're not known to prevent, are they known to mental health services? Because it does feel more Nottingham,
yes, it does,
or even Southport than it does terrorism. And it's the questions are going to be asked, because if you're shouting the devil's not going to win, that does suggest they're having some type of episode, as horrific as that is. But there's also there's been a calmness when the woman has said, "Don't kill me," and the devil's not going to win, and then other people are being stabbed. It's how do you deal with somebody with a huge knife like that? The truth is, you want to see somebody with a weapon and a taser or a gun. Is the absolute truth is so they're dealt with that way, because most of us are not in the world of knowing how to fight and
then there's
combat somebody.
And then there's extraordinary police officers run straight at
the train.
At the train, straight at him, not knowing what to expect. How many of them were armed, we don't know. I mean, extraordinary. should never forget what a great job our police do.
8 minutes it took from that
Amazing.
call that the British Transport Police received to getting on that train.
Restrained and no longer a threat to the public.
That station's next to the police headquarters there,
which was
as well, which is
fortuitous.
And in March this year, this is an extraordinary coincidence. In March this year, British Transport Police, local emergency services and rail operators carried out a large-scale training exercise simulating a knife attack on a moving train.
Wow.
Took place near Huntingdon.
Amazing.
They trained for this to happen.
Yeah.
Which
helps
exactly
explain why it
place.
was such a remarkable operation.
The scenario was designed to test how quickly officers and medical teams could respond to a violent incident on the rail network, particularly if a train stopped between stations, which of course is not what happened, because the train driver managed to alert the authorities and was given, you know, the access to the slower line and was able to make that stop at Huntingdon. And who knows how much longer that attack would have gone on if he'd had to carry on moving and gone to the next station. It could have been another 10
the
minutes.
next station was Stevenage, and the next station would be 10, 15 minutes away. I mean, it's quite a long period of time.
You've got to wonder the panic on that train, whether people were pulling the communications cord to try and somehow get it stopped.
And they're banging on the driver's door telling him what's happened.
But if you stop in the middle of nowhere, you can't get out of a train. I mean, you're 5, 6 feet off the ground anyway. You'd be get out on the live lines around
and
there.
harder for police to get to the train as well.
That train will be diesel or electric overhead, but there are commuter trains that run with electric lines.
Yeah, and other trains going past you if you stop in the middle
Susanna,
of
I was looking. There's 2,600 stations on the rail network. The calls now for having security at stations, I can't see how you could actually police 2,600 stations and turn them all into mini airports.
So just let's talk about the driver for a moment, because it was such quick thinking, because in that moment, he must have been thinking, firstly, he's at risk of being attacked. Yeah. And secondly, is the attacker going to try and take over the controls of the train? Yeah. I mean, you know, who knows what's going to happen?
I mean, he may not even know at this point there is attack. All he knows is there is multiple alarms coming to him. I mean, given where the attack happened, which is one side of the buffet, there's then first and him at the front of the train. Quite hard for somebody to get to him to tell him what's going on.
Unless it comes over the radio.
Yeah, the door's locked. It's whether the steward or another staff member could then contact the driver on the. Yeah.
That's true.
They like have an intercom system to alert. We don't know that, but they're trained to remain cool. But I tell you, I might be in a locked cab. I'd be panicking if I thought.
Well, his military experience was a huge help, I imagine.
He's a Royal Navy Iraq War veteran.
Absolutely.
He's had his own training.
He has.
How to keep cool under pressure.
Literally been in the thick of real battle, and it showed.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course,
another great hero.
A totally humble response when asked about it by ITV News and whether he would do an interview. I was only doing my job.
Doing my job, I know.
He says.
He was collecting money for the British Legion at the weekend. Great guy.
It was my colleague who is in hospital who was the brave one.
Yeah.
He's a NASLEF member. And the trade union.
They were both brave. They're both heroic.
That guard on the train, or as we don't know the individual, whether he was working in the buffet, whether he was, you know, sort of the ticket inspector, but whoever he was, he put himself between the knifeman and passengers.
Extraordinary.
Which is absolutely extraordinary. And I was just saying this morning, the guard who's on the platform, as you see the passengers running off the train to get out of the platform, to get off the platform, there is a guard. It's not these pictures, it's the pictures within the station, who is calmly saying to them, run, get out of the way, as the knifeman is walking towards him.
And he doesn't back. It's amazing.
Yeah, people are extraordinarily brave at times. And
puts your heart in your mouth, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and you always hope you'd be like them, but.
Not sure I would.
No, well, nor am I, and that's why you take your hat off to them. We should remember this when trains are late or cancelled or there's industrial action or whatever it is,
and these people
turn on them. You know, when the chips are down, they are there.
Yeah. And the trains worked the whole way through COVID, and when we didn't know how lethal that pandemic was going to be, they were actually putting themselves at risk because they worked every day.
But of course, as we've also reported this morning, it wasn't one person, but two people initially arrested. A 32-year-old black man who is still in custody and a 35-year-old man of Caribbean descent who has been subsequently released. But I think the Daily Mail reporting that he was tasered on the platform while shouting his innocence. And
it's not me, it's not me.
In that moment, the police officers would be getting information. They're making quick decisions.
They were doing their job.
But there will be questions asked about that tasering.
Yeah, but look, somebody's gone on the rampage with a knife. They've told it's a young black man. They see a young black man. They take him out. I think it's a split-second decision.
It's pretty...
I'm not going to criticise the police.
No. Well, they've got to work this out now. I can see in the chaos and the confusion, the passengers are making mistakes.
But could have pointed.
That's kind of understandable. But
I think that's what happened.
But you've got to think about this guy who's been arrested and tasered.
But if the passengers had said it's him,
I know.
Well, we don't know what was said.
But
it's possible that's what happened.
You've got to think of this because if you go to the Manchester synagogue attack, which was terrorism, the police shot one of the people at the synagogue, didn't they?
That appears to have been when they were trying to bring down the individual who was responsible. But this appears to be because they just got the wrong guy.
Yeah, the mistake. That's
he survived in this case, of course. He was, he was tasered. The police said it was reported in good faith to officers responding to the incident that he was involved in the attack. And following inquiries, we can confirm that he was not involved. Meanwhile, we believe...
And
it was being reported on the media for quite a long time that two men were involved in this attack.
Well, it was all through Sunday, which, of course, was much, much harder to understand. Because if you're being told it's not terror-related, but it's two men with a knife...
I must admit, I immediately wondered when it said, one knife, two men. I was thinking, this doesn't quite, somebody's just there as a supporter worker or something. But, of course, the police issued the statement yesterday saying and quite rightly said two people had been arrested and they identified them, learning lessons from Southport where if you create a vacuum, the internet fills with people coming up with crazy, wrong lies and so on, all trying to... Let's be honest, there'll have been some people who are very disappointed because you could see it on social media that it wasn't an asylum seeker who'd come over on a small boat and it wasn't terrorism. But there are sections of the country that jumps to that and almost wants that. But if there's just been two black men on this train and the innocent guy is being tasered because he was black, that raises whole questions about how you respond.
And it took 22 hours to say it wasn't two, it was one. We don't know how long this person was held in custody. I can tell you, having been tasered myself, it's not something you forget quickly. He was an innocent man tasered on the platform, yelling that it wasn't him.
Can you just explain to people why you were tasered? Because that is obviously quite an alarming thing to hear without context.
Yes, it was for a documentary I made for the BBC called Travels in Trumpland. And we were spending time with the police down in Louisiana. And the law in Louisiana and in other states says you cannot, as a police officer, use a taser and then in court explain why you had done that and that you knew what you were doing unless you can, from first-hand experience, explain to the court you know what it is to be tasered.
So is every police officer
every police officer is tasered for 6 seconds, 5 to 6 seconds, as part of their training. And I did some training with them and then was tasered with them in order to experience what they experienced. And then we talked about it afterwards. And you stand with two police officers on either side. And what happens is there's two... the taser fires two wires, and one goes into your back, one into your kind of butt, and the current goes through for 6 seconds, and in that moment you utterly seize, and it is a total trauma. You are completely incapacitated, and you collapse, which is why they have to hold you up to stop you hurting yourself in the fall. It is very traumatic. I mean, for me, it was safe, and they said to me, it is safe, it's okay. I think you're allowed to be tasered in the US anyway. It was up to 17 seconds, but we just had 5 or 6 seconds. Right. But, I mean, it's not something... I mean, it's very incapacitating. Yes. You can totally see why the police, in that moment, if they believe this is a suspect with a knife, that is what you would do. And in the Haino case, where there was terrible
This is
injuries
in
to the police
North West
officer in
London.
North West London, which was a knife-wielding
Where a child was
attacker,
killed.
where the child was killed. In that case, the use of the taser was very important.
Yeah.
But
Can I just ask, how long does it take to recover from? Do you have to go to hospital to recover, or can
No.
you recover on site?
it pierces the skin because the dart goes into you. But the moment the current stops, you calm down quite quickly.
Right.
You have like a big fight or flight moment as well. But I mean, certainly all of that day and into the next day, there was still a sort of sense of the trauma of it.
Yeah.
But this guy,
I'll never forget it.
This guy have experienced the terror of being on the train with somebody rampaging with a knife.
Yes.
And
Experiencing trauma.
And then you're experiencing it all over again when the police mistakenly believe you are the person with a knife.
And
or
to
somebody.
anyone saying, why didn't they just shoot the armed officers?
Yeah, well, this
There
is
we go,
why.
there's your answer.
There would have been an innocent man
Could be
killed.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
for this guy, he's thinking to himself,
No.
I'm scared,
Yeah,
I need to run. But he's also thinking, if I'm a black man running,
yeah.
does that make me more of a target?
Armed officers who have guns, though, they're very well trained. I know mistakes happen, but if the guy had stopped, unless feared he was a terrorist, and they feared if he had a bulky coat on, they feared he had something.
But this is the case for the use of the taser.
Yeah.
Because of course, there are rare times when tasers kind of cause longer-term harm, but in general, it is safe and it's traumatic. And so much better. And in the case of, I remember discussing with police officers afterwards the importance of having tasers available to police officers arriving in moments like this, because it is both incapacitating but not sort of
lethal.
Can you imagine if they had to try and disarm the man who, the suspect, the alleged
Without a
guy
taser.
with a knife, and you didn't have a taser, and you had to go up.
I think
with
all police
sticks or
officers should have tasers, but they don't.
And
it's an
in Hainault,
operational
in
decision.
northwest London, where the schoolboy was murdered, they didn't all have
No,
They didn't.
I think they
tasers.
should. I think they should all have them routinely, and I think it should be a political decision. It's up to chief constables, and I think every police officer, you shouldn't send them into these situations without that sort of defence.
I see the case for that. Yeah. For a non-lethal weapon, which can protect the police officer, protect the public,
and also take out the suspect,
incapacitate somebody without killing them.
Exactly right.
Now,
Shall we talk about, because obviously we're going to be talking to two eyewitnesses of that attack after 7 o'clock, and we'll talk to the Transport Secretary as well about this surge in police officers and what can be done on a daily basis to make us all feel safer on trains and not just temporarily. But shall we move on to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as we now know him? No longer Prince Andrew,
Amazing.
no longer Duke of York, and probably no longer Honorary Vice Admiral. So President Trump was asked about the troubles posed by Prince Andrew, as he was formerly known, on Air Force One last night. Let's hear what he had to say. Feels badly for the royal family. I wonder whether he feels that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should now be interviewed over in America.
and whether the files should all be released, which he and the Justice Department said yes, they should be.
Before he was elected?
Yeah, and they claim to have seen a list of all the people who were entangled with Jeffrey Epstein, and then all of a sudden they've U-turned. Because he's getting, because he himself knew it. Now he says he cut off his own relations very, very early on, but nevertheless there is a cover-up still in the US. He might feel badly for the royal family, but I think he's also worried about himself.
Might have thought about feeling badly for the victims,
Oh,
Epstein,
no.
of course. Maybe. And I thought there was an extraordinary story on one of the Sundays yesterday. I think it was Sunday Times that. When statements were put out by the palace about this, there were references about support for the victims of Epstein, young girls, and Prince Andrew
Mountbatten
Windsor, took them out.
And why were they allowing
Terrible.
that? Why
because he had a power of veto. He has no power of veto now.
And
the palace, I mean, the king has completely turned him. That statement was dramatic, it was hard-hitting, it talked about censuring him. They no longer believe him. I don't know how long they believed him.
Just in time.
Yeah.
I mean, we were discussing this all last week while you guys were away, and on the Monday, it didn't feel as though the removing of the title voluntarily the end of the previous week was enough.
Yeah.
And public anger was kind of still there and growing. And so I think the King did the right thing, but I don't think they could have delayed too much longer. It does raise a question, though, doesn't it? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, we're so used to
Of course.
by
All his
the old
life.
name.
64 years.
I think I'm the only one who isn't,
I know,
actually.
well, I know. In my old job, I used to meet him a lot. And
how did you find him?
May I say, I don't think I've ever met anybody who was more concerned about the use of his title. I actually once sent him a letter thanking him for something he had done for the government, and the letter was returned to me when I was a minister. This was because I hadn't addressed him by his proper title. And
because you not put KG.
I hadn't written Your Royal Highness at the top. I'd written Dear Andrew, and the view was that this was so insulting that he wasn't willing to receive the letter unless it was rewritten by me. I was the Minister of the Crown, elected parliamentarian at the Treasury, and I wrote, it was Your Royal Highness, blah blah blah. Dear Andrew, thank you so much, blah blah blah. Best wishes, and they sent it back and said.
And what
It has to be sent again, because unless you write Dear Your Royal Highness, then it's not acceptable.
Pompous.
Did he ever visit your department?
He was doing the work about UK trade around the world, so paid for by the Trade Department. But because I was the Treasury Minister for Financial Services, he did do things to support our work in the Middle East and in Singapore. And so I spoke to him often about the visits he was making. But I mean, to say he stood on ceremony would be an understatement. But he can now decide, I guess, whether he goes to give this evidence. Although I think if I was the King and I was being asked, let's be honest, from, in the end, taxpayers' money to pay for his lifestyle in Sandringham, I think I would be saying, that your obligation to do the right thing for the victims includes you giving evidence.
And he can do it here. He doesn't have to go to America where he might be afraid to get arrested and locked up. He could do it on Zoom. He should.
If I were the King, I would be saying that is your duty.
Because he maintains his innocence.
Family's handled
so
this
let's
really
hear
badly. It's 15 years since we saw his
I know.
relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and he was pictured strolling in the sun with him in New York. Was it 10 years since he was named in court documents? It's 6 years since the interview on Newsnight.
I fear there's more to come.
3 years since they trousered up £12 million to keep a case out. Look, I think
it's clear Prince William and Kate wanted action, and I think the King came to that view, and they've acted.
But he'd been too slow. His big brother shouldn't be patting himself on the back.
They got there in the end.